This is purely a journalistic point of view. Nothing more has been said in this video other than that of which has been reported by various media sources and backed up with sources seen at the end of this video.
During the early 1980s, Jimmy Superfly Snuka was one of the WWF's top babyfaces, but he was plagued by personal demons that ended up what could have been a main event career. However, did Snuka's personal demons also end his girlfriend's life? Join us as Behind the Titantron examines the death of Nancy Argentino. On the night of the 10th of May 1983, shortly before midnight, an ambulance crew responded to a call from Jimmy Snuka concerning his girlfriend, Nancy Argentino. Miss Argentino was taken to the hospital, where she died shortly thereafter at 2 AM. The case would be recommended as a homicide, but after an investigation, no charges were filed. In 1985, the family received a default judgment in federal court, but was unable to collect, as Snuka claimed he was insolvent. On the 1st of September 2015, 32 years after Miss Argentino's death, the Lehigh County prosecutor charged Snuka with third-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. On the 1st June 2016, Judge Kelly Benoit ruled Snuka was unfit to stand trial due to Snuka's dementia. Jimmy Snuka died on the 15th of January 2017, leaving more unanswered questions. What happened to Nancy Argentino, and did Jimmy Snuka get away with murder? Jimmy Snuka, real name James Wiley Smith Ryer, entered the WWF as a heel in 1982, quickly working his way into a main event program with WWF champion Bob Backlund. The Snuka Backlund series at Madison Square Garden became legendary when Snuka dived off a steel cage during his 28th June 1982 match against the WWF champion. By this time, Snuka was being cheered, and before long, the WWF turned him babyface. A year later, Snuka was arguably the company's top babyface, embroiled in a feud with Intercontinental Champion the Magnificent Morocco. The sky seemed the limit, but Snuka's demons were dragging him down. The legendary Buddy Rogers served as Snuka's storyline manager and behind the scenes. He helped get Snuka to important matches. Why would a grown man need someone to get him to his matches is a question to consider when analysing this story. According to Irv Muchnick's book, Justice Denied, Rogers stopped driving with Snuka because of the Superfly's blatant cocaine use during their travels. Rogers, who managed Snuka years earlier in Jim Crockett Promotions, is quoted in Justice Denied as saying, "Jimmy could be a sweet person, but on that stuff, he was totally uncontrollable," said Rogers, who was also Snuka's neighbor on Coles Mill Road in Haddonfield, New Jersey. Snuka's wife, with whom he had 4 children with, befriended Rogers' wife. "Jimmy used to beat the shit out of that woman," Rogers said. "She would show up at our house, bruised and battered, but she couldn't leave him. He had her hooked on the same junk he was using." A criminal complaint mentioned in the 2015 Daily Beast story discusses how, in October 1983, Debbie Rogers, the wife of Snuka's manager, Buddy, took photos and notes of injuries to Sharon as a result of her beating by Snuka and her hospitalization. One of 3 sisters, Nancy Argentino, came from an Italian-American home in Brooklyn, attending Catholic school through 8th grade. In an 18th June 2013 article, her older sister Lorraine fondly remembered her. "I always admired her because she had a fun spirit. She didn't have any trouble relating to people. People were drawn to her. She was just fun to be around." Nancy worked in a dentist's office, and her employer encouraged her to pursue nursing, so Miss Argentino enrolled at the local community college. However, the allure of the squared circle would put her plans on hold when she took time off to travel with Jimmy Snuka. How did Nancy Argentino get involved with Snuka? According to Justice Denied, Nancy Argentino's childhood friend Ellen was married to wrestler Johnny Rodz, and this relationship led to Miss Argentino's interest in wrestling. At one point, Miss Argentino dated Hulk Hogan, but reportedly ended their relationship when she learned Hogan had other girlfriends. Wrestler Johnny Rodz is rumored to have introduced Nancy to Snuka. Conflicting reports exist whether Argentina knew Snuka was married. One story is Snuka had an open marriage, while another is Argentina was aware of Snuka's marriage. Regardless, there is no relation between what happened to Miss Argentino and her knowledge of Snuka's marriage. Snuka, who was 16 years older than Argentino, wrote in his autobiography, "We slept together each time, but we also hung out. She was a very nice girl and we got along right away. According to a 1983 conversation with police, Caroline Argentino, Nancy's mother, told them Snuka gave Nancy money to buy for things such as furs and dresses as long as she could account for the money. Argentino soon discovered traveling with Snuka could be dangerous. On the 18th of January 1983, police reportedly found Snuka dragging Argentino by the hair through a motel in Salina, New York. Snuka engaged in a no-holds-barred brawl with an assortment of cops and canine dogs before being subdued. Snuka was charged with second and third degree assault and obstruction of governmental administration, but accepted a plea deal that dropped all of those charges in exchange for pleading guilty to harassment in April 1983. A police report listed Argentino as having suffered a bruised right thumb, a contusion to the neck, possible fractured ribs, and injury to the lower back. But Argentino later swore in a deposition that Snuka never touched her. In his autobiography, Snuka claims the situation was a misunderstanding, but another story is that he became enraged when he couldn't find his drugs. Nancy's younger sister recalls a troubling incident in which Nancy returned home with Snuka to pick up clothes. Snuka was talking with Nancy's younger sister while Nancy was getting her clothes when the Superfly pulled out some cocaine and began snorting it. An angry Nancy admonished Snuka for doing the drugs in front of her sister, and the two began arguing. Later that day, Snuka and Nancy began arguing again, and according to Justice Denied, Snuka looked at Nancy's sister and said, "I could kick you and put your hands around your throat and nobody would know." Over time, Nancy's mother reportedly grew concerned and hoped she would return home. On or around the 9th of May 1983, Nancy called her mother to let her know she was coming home the next day. Tragically, things turned out much different than Nancy's mother envisioned. On or around the 10th of May 1983, Nancy Argentino suffered a head injury. As we shall soon see, the details of how and why differ, depending on which of Jimmy Snuka's many alibis you believe, if any. According to Snuka, when they arrived at the George Washington Motor Lodge about 45 minutes later, Nancy said her head hurt and she wanted to lie down. They went to sleep for a few hours. Snuka left for the fairgrounds around 1 PM and Nancy was breathing normally, he told police. He kissed her and said, "I'll be right back as soon as I get done." On the 10th of May 1983, Snuka returned to his and Nancy's motel following a TV taping in Allentown Fairground. Snuka reportedly found Nancy Argentino gasping for air. According to his 1983 police interview, "I thought, my God, I better try to call a doctor right away. Right away, I just went out of my mind. I didn't know what to do with her. I just called the front desk. I told them that my girl is having a hard time breathing. Just seems like she can't even breathe at all. Whatever you do, please hurry up." Paramedics were summoned and Miss Argentina was taken to Lehigh Valley Hospital where she died around 2 AM. In an interview with the police inside the morgue, Deputy Coroner Wayne Snyder said Nancy's body had several black and blue marks. He suggested the police interview Snuka and compare his verbal statement with the professional results of an autopsy. An interview with Irv Muchnick for his book Justice Denied, Snyder recalls, "Upon viewing the body and speaking to the pathologist, I immediately suspected foul play and so notified the district attorney." According to police records, Vince McMahon and his company cooperated with the investigation. On the 1st of June 1983, Snuka and McMahon met with District Attorney Platt, Assistant District Attorney Robert Steinberg, Mihalakis the medical examiner, and Whitehall police detectives Jerry Prekenyan, Al Fritzinger, and Vincent Geiger. According to Irv Muchnick, no charges were filed in the case, no coroner's inquest was held, and no evidence was presented to a grand jury. Whitehall's former police chief defended Platt's actions at the time. "Bill was one of the most professional, intelligent, and concerned prosecutors that I ever run into. He was certainly not the kind of guy who was going to shy away from anything if he thought it wasn't right." The Argentino family obtained 2 private investigations into the case. The first one was conducted by Richard Cushing, a New York attorney who spoke to officials and sought access to records. Cushing told Irv Muchnick, "It was a very peculiar situation. I came away feeling Snuka should have been indicted. The police and the DA felt otherwise. The DA seemed like a nice enough person who wanted to do nothing. There was fear, I think on 2 counts. Fear of the amount of money the World Wrestling had, and physical fear of the size of these people." Cushing eventually declined to take the case, but Nancy's father's employer hired a law firm to take the case, leading to the family's default judgment against Snuka. Arguably the biggest reason the case is shrouded in mystery is Snuka's plethora of explanations as to what happened. Snuka reportedly told at least 5 people he'd pushed Nancy, and she fell and hit her head. He later said they misunderstood him. The article Jimmy Superfly Snuka and the Mysterious Death of Nancy Argentino lists the various stories made to police by Snuka and other witnesses. Number 1. Snuka told the responding officer he and Nancy were fooling around outside the hotel room door when he pushed her and she fell, striking her head. Number 2. Two emergency room employees, Carol McBride and Susan Sinclair, told police Snuka stated he and Nancy got into an argument and he pushed her and she fell back and hit her head. Number 3. Emergency room doctor John Fassel told police Snuka said he and Nancy were fooling around and she was pushed and fell backwards and struck her head. At some point after the fall, they were fooling around again, with Snuka giving Nancy light slaps to the face. He also said Snuka seemed genuinely concerned for Nancy's condition. Hospital chaplain Barbara Smith helped Snuka call the Argentino family after Nancy was pronounced dead. She told police that Snuka told her he and Nancy had stopped on the way to Allentown to get to the bathroom and were clowning around when he shoved her with his forearm and she fell backward onto her back and hit her head on the concrete. Which of any of these stories is true? And if any of them are true, why didn't Snuka get help for Nancy Argentino right away? According to Irv Mushnick's Wrestling Babylon, forensic pathologist Dr. Isidore Mihalikis confronted Snuka about his failure to get medical care right away. The case refused to go away though. Journalist Irv Mushnick continued writing about the case, pointing out the discrepancies in Snuka's stories. Then in 2013, an article in the Morning Call brought renewed interest to the case. On the 28th of June 2013, Lehigh County District Attorney Jim Martin announced that the still open case would be reviewed by his staff. On the 1st of September 2015, 32 years later after the incident, Snuka was arrested and charged with third-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter for Argentino's death. Snuka's attorney waived a preliminary hearing in order to get grand jury evidence. However, that became moot when Snuka's attorney argued he had dementia and was incompetent to stand trial, and a judge agreed on the 1st of June 2016. On the 15th of January 2017, Snuka passed away from terminal illness. The information we presented to you is all that is known about the case, leaving some to believe Jimmy Snuka got away with killing Nancy Argentino, while others believing her death was a tragic accident. With Jimmy Snuka dead, there seems no hope of justice, except in the afterlife. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Behind the Titantron. Be on the lookout for more every Wednesday. Be sure to support us on Patreon, subscribe if you already haven't, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.